we should be now live. That's us live, Mark. So
hello.
We can introduce ourselves. What we'll do is allow you the opportunity to go first, Mark. You can introduce yourself a wee bit until some of these viewers come in. We should probably do similar to what SEO and Rush do, just do a wee introduction and yeah, wait for some viewers to come on.
Okay. Well, I'm Mark Preston. I'm a freelance SEO trainer. I go around the UK predominantly and train both agency staff and companies on what they actually need to know and want to know to do their job better, rather than going in with set slides, bing, 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 no point. It's very much tailored to them, and they get a lot more out of the day by doing that. Yeah, been in the industry 15, 16 years, seen everything, tried everything, tested lots of things. Some things were good, some things wasn't. So today it's about just having a good chat about what should be done, what shouldn't, what works and what doesn't. I'm looking forward to it. Over to you, Craig.
Well, I'm Craig Campbell, and I'm similar to Mark. I've been in this game 15, 16 years now, and this is the first time we've ever done a kind of self-hosted webinar. And you know, myself and Mark speak a lot on a regular basis just about problems we face or how would we deal with this situation. So, you know, we're both doing training now, and you know, travel all over, offering training to agents and whatnot. And yeah, so we both have similar backgrounds, experience levels, and we just obviously want to have a webinar where we can actually chat freely without being, you know, told to sell an item or promote an item, or, you know, you can't ask this or that. So hopefully we can offer some good tips and advice on this webinar. We do have some questions, but obviously we want to have a wee brief discussion about problems we've faced and stuff like that. So so obviously, Mark, you've been in this industry as long as me. We have spoken in the past. We've both built ourselves up to have agencies, and we've had the staff and working with a whole bunch of clients. And obviously, from the outside looking in, you at some point last year, can't remember the dates, but you know, you decided to give up on client side work and focus completely on training. So obviously I've got my own reasons for not doing client work. I've had my own problems, which I'm sure, you know, most agencies and whatnot will agree with. But just, you know, what was your reasons for doing that? What sort of problems were you facing, or, you know, why did you take that approach?
Well, mixed reasons basically, because I built an agency up based on white label. So I was one of the main white label providers in the UK. Mm-hmm. The problem with that, everybody else, bar me, got the recognition. And one day I was sat there, and there were a photo in the newspaper with this guy holding an award for work I'd physically done. And I'm like, what? You know, they're going out and taking all the credit, but that's the nature of white label. Mm-hmm. And I found myself to be the biggest unknown SEO expert in the world because I knew what I was talking about, but no one had ever heard of me because it was always been white label. Mm-hmm. On the other side, I just felt running an agency was a vicious circle. There didn't seem to be a solution to the problems. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you got clients in, you do good work, and they'd leave because you did good work, they didn't think they need you anymore, or something went wrong. It's just lots of hassle. So I ended up spending my days sorting problems out instead of doing what I actually love.
Yeah.
And that's the scenario. So April last year, one day I just got up and thought, that's it. I've had enough. I just can't deal with this anymore. You know, I was working 24/7 for other people. so staff that didn't appreciate, just for other people without getting the credit of anything. So it was a case of I thought, that's it. I just resigned. I spent a couple of weeks as a non-director, but that didn't work. So I decided, that's it. I'm going to set my own brand up, call it my own name, then it's just me. And obviously since then, I've just been testing different things, just mix and match and seeing what's best for me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's in a nutshell. It was a spur at moment thing.
Yeah, it's probably quite a similar approach to myself. I've had clients same as yourself, where one example would be January last year we took on a client, and this guy was selling products online, and he had a great January. He started at the start of January. It was one of those ones where it started after the Christmas break. Had an excellent start to the campaign, and we'd done it for 3 or 4 months. The guy turned over £250,000 in online sales over that period of time, and it was quite a niche market, but it was something that everyone wants. And the guy had in his head, for whatever reason, that he should have been turning over 50 grand a month. So 3 or 4 months into the campaign, the guy fired us for doing that. So the return on investment for spending £3,000 or £4,000 or whatever it wasn't a huge amount of money. To get that back was frightening. And at that point you're going, I can do some really good work here, but what is the point? You can still do a good job and you still find yourself fired, and the whole justification process to clients, what you're doing here, what you're doing there. That was one of my reasons for wanting to focus more on training. And obviously, given the length of time I've been in this industry, I feel it is time that, I can step up to the training table as well, and help other people learn, because I do spend thousands and thousands of pounds trying out different tools, different things, and I've made more mistakes than anyone here. Well, you might beg to differ, but I'm sure along the way when we've been doing the agency stuff, we've all made mistakes. Blown up people's websites, done this, that, and the next thing. So it's good to obviously try and educate people to not make those mistakes. So I think that's obviously where I can add value to agencies and whatnot. But I'm sure you're similar as well. And I think even your approach to it, we're not wanting to be doing big seminars where it's the big I am, stuff like that. I think the more personalised training, or training small agency teams or whatever, seems to be working really well for me at the moment, and I get a lot of good feedback from it. And how's that working for you in terms of when you're out training the agencies? Is it working well, just using that personalised approach?
Oh, definitely. If I was in a room speaking to 150 people, they're not going to get any benefit from it, because maybe I'm on stage for 3 hours and only 10 minutes relates to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to get any value from it. And what I find is when I go into agencies like you, nobody's perfect in this industry. You have to try things. Some things work, some things don't. But it's that experience that you can relate to them. So when they say, oh, we're thinking about this, you can relate on their level. Say, oh, right, well, I tried that, but you need to do it this way. Or you can, and I find that they actually love it. I go into agencies and companies alike, and the first thing I ask is, what do you want to learn? And basically I make a list, and that's my topic for the day. And so I know at the end of the day, they've actually learned what they actually need to know to do their job better.
So is there anything in particular when you're out training agencies that you feel is problematic? Is there a lack of tools? Like, for example, I go out to agencies and they're not even using the bare basic tools to check out their competitors or anything. There's guys out there just basically pissing in the wind, if you want to call it that, guessing what they're doing. And that, to me, that's shocking. That I'm absolutely shocked at not all agencies, by the way. I don't want to be seen as a guy that's bashing agencies all over the place, because there is some great agencies out there with all the right tools and good staff, but I think there's a high percentage of agencies and even individuals out there who are doing SEO without even the bare basic tools. There's loads of them. They're all well known: SEMrush, Majestic, Ahrefs. All of these tools, you know, they're not even. You can't be doing the bare basics at all without these. I mean, I know you can, but do you find that when you're out and about that these people are not using these tools, or how does it?
I find it's one extreme or the other. Is some agencies are going have every tool under the sun, but they haven't a clue what they're looking at, or they just don't use tools. It's like, well, what do you do? How do you research? What do you do? Well, we don't know how to do it, you know. And but that's one of the reasons I'm there.
Yeah,
you know. Went into one agency, they don't even use Search Console. You know, that's how. And from the training side, it's really opened my eyes as to the agency life. And I'm thinking, why? Just what? How can you take money off people and not doing the very basics? Okay, that's it. I know where you are. Let's start from scratch. Let's go through and do it this way. But I go into, like you said, not every agency is like this. You know, I go into some agencies that's got their head screwed on, do really well, and just need a bit of guidance on certain things. Whereas some of them, I'm going in, I'm thinking, right, well, this is going to be an advanced training session, and I'm basically doing basic stuff.
Yeah, I can agree with that as well. You don't know what you're given out in terms of training. You know, they call it advanced, and it's the very bare basics. You know, I see a lot of agency staff, you know, going, oh, this tool's amazing. You know, this would put out so much time. You know, and you know that's it's really poor. But I think that's obviously something that's going to always be there anyway. You know, there's so many people read books on SEO and claim to be experts and stuff like that. But you know, obviously, I think the training side is something where we, you know, not everyone's doing training, where we can obviously develop people and help them learn and even do the bare basics and hopefully provide value that way. But you know, what sort of tools were you using when you were working as an agency, or what tools do you use these days? Obviously, there'll be people out there want to know what do we guys use. That's a question I'm asked quite a lot. So even just a rough guide of what sort of tools you use on a day-to-day.
Well, obviously, all the free Google tools is a must. That's where I always start. Google Trends, Search Console, Analytics, just all the free tools from Google. That's the starting point. I'm a big fan of Ahrefs, and I'm also link research tools. But I use different tools for different reasons. And SEMrush for me, it's more of a competitor research tool. Is, you know, if it's for links or something, link research tools. Ahrefs, I just love the keyword research tool in there, different things. But no one tool's perfect. That's why you need a collection of them. Obviously, Screaming Frog, you know, depending on size of the websites. But yeah, it's like you. It's you need to invest a lot of money in getting the right tools. But without the right tools, you can't do the right research. So then you're running a campaign based on what ifs. Yeah.
And that obviously seems to be quite a common thing with a lot of SEO guys is obviously running with what ifs. You know, I'm similar to yourself. I use all the tools you mentioned. SEMrush, you know, great competitor analysis tool. Just so you know, get a guide to what people are up to. Obviously, using Search Console analytics are key, and a lot of people choose to ignore using even the free tools. But yeah, I've got to agree with that we have to be using the right tools to do the right job. Otherwise, we are going to be in trouble. So I think obviously you can't do much other than promote these tools and you know, talk at seminars or webinars and discuss them. But you know, I just wanted to see if you were using anything that'd be slightly different from me. But you know, I think the ones you've mentioned are all ones that, you know, I would tend to use on a daily basis. Often I find that, you know, when you talk to other SEO guys, you do find some good wee tips and, you know, different tools. You know, for example, I met an SEO a couple of weeks back called Andy Drinkwater, and he highlighted me to a tool. It's not actually out yet, but it's called Sitebulb. You know, I think there's testing and stuff going on, which is another kind of crawling tool and stuff like that, which looks pretty cool. You know, but even talking to other people about what tools you use, it just gives me, I love it. You know, just trying to find out what other tools are out there. Is there something better, or is, you know, Mark Preston using something I'm not? Am I missing a trick here? And you know, is there anyone that you kind of follow or look to? I mean, how do you keep on top of your game in that respect? You know, finding out who's using what. Do you just generally chit chat to folk, or is there someone you follow, or anything like that?
It's usually people contact me saying, do you want to try this? Because I try lots of different tools, but if I can't see any difference in them, you know, then I won't go with them. One tool that I have found very useful from the business side is Sitebeam. Don't know if you've used it yourself, but
no.
it basically looks at from the digital marketing perspective, and it creates a dashboard based on numbers, how scores, and using that as a report for the client. Every month they get the report, and that's what they love, because it's not full of numbers, it's not full of graphs, it's not full of rubbish, it's full of something they can understand. And clients say to me, right, okay, it splits it down into different sections, social and marketing and off-page, everything, and each month the scores are going up. So from the client's perspective, they know that I've physically done something to get them scores going up. Then they'd say, can you print one out for my competitor? So then they want me to obviously beat the competitor's scores. But in turn, doing the actual techniques to beat them does have a positive effect. If it didn't do anything, there's no point. You know, so I've found that's a useful tool.
It's one I've never used it, but certainly one that I will always have a look at. I love hearing, you know, when other guys like yourself talk, to see what you're using. And I think client reporting and stuff like that is a big subject, and it's obviously one of the reasons that kind of put me off doing too much in the way of client side work, because one of the big questions everyone has is what you're supposed to report on. You know, as far as I'm concerned, SEO is a service, it's not a training course. And you know, you want to report on traffic, keywords, and you know, rankings and all that kind of stuff. But you know, where do you stop? You mean, I've seen reports from other marketing agencies that have maybe done SEO for a client before me, and you know, some of the stuff on there is absolutely horrendous. You know, they're talking garbage. It's just waffle on there, and you know, that's something I don't really like in my life, full stop. You know, and I think obviously by the sounds of this tool, without having used it, it cuts probably a lot of that out, numbers and stuff, because in my experience, you're taking time to do these reports, which is a pain in the backside when you're, you know, running an agency doing client reports and stuff. Well, it was for me anyway, and I feel that, you know, there isn't a great tool that you can just do a report. So obviously Sitebeam is one worth looking at if it gives a client something that's easy to understand. I mean, did you have any particular other tools that you use for reporting, or was it kind of like myself, where I had a big mismatch of stuff, you know, screenshots from SEMrush, you know, bits here, there and everywhere. It was all cobbled together, which was obviously very frustrating, because when it came to reporting time for me, my head was down for a week solid trying to get the reports and invoices out, and I found it quite stressful. And it's because clients are always want to see, obviously SEO is not something you can touch or feel, it's not a tangible item, and you know, people don't want to pay in the hope that, you know, Mark Preston's doing work in the background that's going to rank them. They need to see something in a lot of cases. And I've had clients that have questioned me to my face, what is it you actually do? Had one last month, guy ranks page 1, position 1 for everything he has to rank for, doing really well, and by his own admission, he sent me an email saying SEO is amazing, but when I went in, I get grilled, what is it you're doing? What is it you're doing? And I'm like, there's got to be some form of secrets from an SEO point of view, not secrets as such, I'm not doing anything dodgy, but there's got to be a line drawn where how much information do you give to a client? So, what's your stance on that? How much information are you giving to these people, or did you give to these people, or would you give to the clients?
Well, over the years, as far as reporting is concerned, I've tried everything. you name it, I've tried it, and I just find simplicity is the best. I find that clients only want to know 3 things. 1, what's my money been spent on? So what have you physically done? 2, what impact has it had? And 3, what's next? And I keep it simple to them points. And literally, my reporting got to a stage where it was an email. It was as simple as that, because I'd bullet point things.
Yeah.
And because I'd always run campaigns based on targets, no matter what that target is, targets can mean different things for different companies. But as long as I based it on targets and I made sure I over-delivered on the targets, then it made payment easier, because there was nothing in the way to stop me getting paid.
Yeah. Because
when I'd told, they know what, no, I'm not good like you. I wouldn't say this is exactly what I've done, because they'd say, bye, Mark, thanks for telling us, we'll go and do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So there is a divide, but I find, simplicity is the best. As long as the targets are being met over the set period of time, then that's what I'd focus on. If somebody does come up and say, well, I want to know the intricate details and that, I'd say, well, sure, I can come down, you can pay me £100 an hour, and I can sit there for 3 days and tell you everything. Do you really want that expense?
It's a good way of putting it across. Time is money, and I think that's a conversation we've had in the past between us. How much do you give away? These guys have no right to getting that. And I know a lot of people then turn around and say, well, you must be doing something dodgy or whatever. You're only trying to protect yourself as an SEO guy. What else have you got to protect yourself other than keeping how you do your job, under wraps to some degree? You wouldn't ever go and ask a builder, exactly how he's getting that roof on your house or whatever. You don't need to know the intricate details. You give him the money and he goes and does it. And I know you can see that, but obviously, that's a tangible product. But, and people will argue you can't see SEO, but you can see the rankings, you can see the traffic. And for me, there is an increasing amount of people who think they're entitled to know more, which obviously brings me to the link building side of SEO, and that's always a question you get from people. What links are you building? I had an email today from someone, does your links get people banned and stuff like that? I've never had anyone banned in my life, and I know we've both got different views on how links are acquired and whatnot, and you've obviously got your angle, you rank well locally, I've got my angle and I rank well, and that's it. So there's no right or wrong answer as far as I'm concerned with link building. I listened to one of your talks where you look at links from a business side. I wasn't entirely sure what that meant, to be fair, but obviously when I've watched your webinar last week, and you explained that you want to get links on websites that are still going to drive traffic to people's websites. And that's not. It's not that I don't think about that. I've just got a different view where I'm looking at different aspects. I'm looking for link building to be the normal way, building power and stuff like that. And obviously Google doesn't give domain metrics out any longer. you've got to use third-party tools such as Majestic or Moz or whatever. But you know what, as far as I'm concerned, good quality relevant links are a must, and they are one of the most important ranking signals. So everyone's got their own ways of doing it. So what is your theory on or thoughts on link building as such? You know, I've been quite a strong advocate of grey or black hat techniques. You know, not that I'm some spammer who fires up GSA and you know rams you know all sorts of links, but you know people may see my tactics as you know borderline you know borderline dodgy or whatever. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they're not. It's just the way everyone else is working. You've got to get links, and how do you do it? Do you be Mr. Nice Guy that posts content out there and everyone's going to link to it naturally? Sadly, you know, that doesn't happen as far as I'm concerned, and you've got to do some form of manipulation. So obviously I'd quite like to get your input on, you know, how you see link building.
It's all down to the budget. Is basically because I only work with companies who have decent money to invest, because I know that if I have a very limited budget, the direction I personally want to go down, it's going to be very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many macro businesses contact me saying, Mark, I've got 50 quid a month. You know, I've got, and you know, I need to make it work or else I can't feed my kids. You know, that kind of approach. And it's just, you know, so it's very much dependent on the time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, going down my approach is I tend to do link building, look for, well, what are the sites where the customers hang out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Will it drive real people to the site? I'd rather spend 10 hours gaining one link that's going to drive a constant flow of traffic, not just in the next day, but in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, rather than going round trying to just grab any link in sight and doing it that way. It does work. Now, how I acquire them links, I have to treat every situation differently and put myself into their shoes, thinking if I own this website, why on earth would I give them a link?
Mm-hmm. Because
a lot of the tactics that gets written about are a load of shite. You know, basically, you know, the SEO sales guide I did. Oh my God, I spent so much time in creating that, doing outreach, everything, and not one frigging link. You know, and it's just, for me, the old persona of writing quality content and the links will come as just, that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, that's not me. And I just found that filling your website full of content that no one reads, it's pointless.
I've got to agree with that. You know, I had a guy. I was watching a webinar probably a month or so ago, and I said something. It was on the kind of live chat thing, and I said it was to that guy Dixon Jones from Majestic, and you know, I was saying, oh, you know, tell us about your PBNs and stuff, and he's like, listen, everything's white hat, blah 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 blah. I go to conferences 20 times a year, and you know, Majestic's a massive company, a massive brand. And him turning up at conferences, talking, sponsoring the events, that is going to acquire natural links to some degree. But I think it's hugely unfair for anyone else that's trying to make their way in the world to have to use that method, because it doesn't work. I mean, how can you get, you know, that exposure that Majestic get? You can't, unless, you know, you're starting to do your seminars or webinars or whatever you're trying to do. And obviously that's one of the purposes you're doing this today, is obviously, you know, get exposure out there and stuff. So we're trying to do all sorts of different things to drive traffic to our websites. But I think obviously link building, private blog networks and all that kind of stuff, depends on what you're doing and what you would call a private blog network. You know, I know a lot of people say to me, private blog network, that's dodgy, so and so on. Is it dodgy? You know, it's dodgy if you don't do it right. Anything's dodgy if you don't do it right. So what's your kind of theory on the use of private blog networks? Are you against it or for it? Have you ever used them? What's your thoughts on that?
Right. Personally, for me, people get PBNs totally mixed up, because for me, there's two types. There's somebody that creates a load of websites on any domain possible just to get links, build it up, trashy content, just to sell links. You know, then what do? They go and send every single SEO in the country a list of the network. I mean, that to me is that's the bad side of private blog networks. That's what will get you caught. That's what's gonna get you slapped. You know, I mean, these people, they're approaching me. Obviously, Google's gonna have that list somewhere. You know, and that's the side. Now, the other side of PBNs is basically somebody that owns multiple websites, and each website is quality and it's run as an individual site. To me, that's not what I class as PBNs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you own these sites. I mean, many years ago, whenever I come up with a new technique, I'd set a website up, and I had 120 websites set up doing different techniques, testing them out. Some of them ranked very well, some of them didn't. The one that ranks very well, I sold as business opportunities.
Yeah.
But for me, that's not a PBN for me, personally.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've always said to customers, use what you've got available. Ask your customers, use what's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me that's a different tactic.
Yeah.
Personally, you know, if I had 50 websites that's all quality in their own right, then obviously I'm gonna, you know, use them. But it's the other side that I'm totally against.
Yeah.
When it comes to PBNs, have I done it in the past? I've tried everything, because I can't say something doesn't work if I haven't tested it.
Yeah.
Because I'd set a new domain up, I'd set a new website up just to test things. Then no business is getting penalised. It's just a website.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad you said it that way. You couldn't have explained it any better. You know, people, when you mention PBNs, or when I talk, because I talk quite openly to people I'm training and stuff like that as well, and I think there are two different types of PBNs. You know, not one, you know, on a shared server where you're just going to sell links and, you know, you're leaving all the footprints. You know, I've got quite a lot of what I would call power in terms of building links, because I've run an agency. You know, one of my models when I was starting out with an agency was renting websites out. You know, I've been in this game that long. I've got so many keyword-rich domain names, because, as you'll know, back in the day, you know, you just had to buy the domain name, and that's how I've got things like onlineseocourses.co.uk. You know, I've got quite a lot of good domain names from back in the day, and you know, what I done was rent websites out. You know, I had some obscure obsession with buying domain names. I used to sit and, you know, someone would email me, I'm a builder in Glasgow, can you do my SEO or whatever? And, you know, I'd look to see if builders in Glasgow was available, and, you know, that's what I'd done. But, you know, what I'd done at that point, I rent a lot of the websites out, and still to this day, you know, they rank well, and we do that. And, you know, that's what I would call that's what I would determine as a PBN, rather than, you know, I think the way that everyone else does it, you know, setting up spammy websites, spinning content, you know, that's just trash. I wouldn't even call that a PBN. But obviously people get the two very confused, and, you know, and it's horrible for the likes of me, because you then get categorized as some, when you say that you're into PBNs and you believe in them or whatever, you know, people have this horrible thought that you're some serial spammer or something like that, which isn't the case. So obviously it would be perfect the way you put that across, that there are different ways of doing it, and it's the same with anything. I think if you take the appropriate time to do things properly, then you're not really going to suffer, you know. But at the end of the day, Google wants to see legit websites and so on. So yeah, I just wanted to cover that topic with you, because sometimes I sit and you just never know what to ask an SEO guy. If you know, should I ask him this, should I not? But so it's good to have it out there and obviously get your feedback on that, because that was a question I wanted to ask myself.
Yeah, it's it just, thing is, people have different perceptions, and obviously PBN is private blog network. If you go and send a list out to people, it's no longer private. I mean, somebody that just owns genuine sites that's driving real traffic, real visitors. Well, when I lived up in Scotland and run an agency from Scotland in Inverness, I had 7 out of the 10 places on the first page.
Yeah.
Obviously, not having a last name beginning with something didn't help. You know, I got a bit of stick for it, yeah. But that's how I did it. You know, with different websites.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect way of working, and as I say, you've got to adapt to what's working. That's my theory. I like trying and testing new things, but it's adapting to how it works. But what we'll do is obviously go on to some questions. We've obviously been asking people for some questions. Obviously, we want to offer some value here to those watching. So I'm just going to chuck a few questions out there, Mark, and we can both answer them. So the first question I've got is from a guy called Matthew Clancy. He says, I have one question, if you don't mind me asking. In terms of link building, especially with directories, when you're filling out your business description, do you need to vary it for every individual directory, or can you just keep it as one extensive description for each directory? Because Google hates duplicate content. However, constantly altering descriptions on these directories can obviously be quite time consuming. So, and you know, the guy's basically saying it's far too time consuming for little rewards. So what's your you know, kind of response to that?
Well, I'd always make sure it's a totally different description to my website. That's one. Some directories want you to write a unique description. That's fine, but sure, I use the same description on multiple directories. In fact, the aggregators, Central Index, you know, it aggregates it to hundreds of websites.
Mm-hmm.
Or this myth about duplicate content, it's a load of shite. You know, that's how it is. It doesn't exist. You know, you won't get penalised. No. But the thing is, if you took the time to write duplicate descriptions, long descriptions for every single directory, that's all right if you want every single directory to get ranked.
Yeah.
But basically, directories are just there to build citations.
I've got to agree. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of, you know, back in the day, again, I'm sure you'll agree, directory listings were vital when a link was a link. But I don't, you know, I probably spend a bit of time doing 15 or 20 local citations and stuff like that. I don't spend too much time doing it. And I don't really see too much of a problem. And obviously, it's always good to keep everything unique, but I don't think, you know, for Matthew's question, he said it's going to be too time consuming for little rewards. You know, changing your description for 15 or 20 directories, which I feel is all you really need to do. Obviously, if you can get more, great, but you know, it's all, as you say, Mark, it's all about the building a couple of citations here and there. But I think links on directories is something that is very old school and doesn't really have too much in the way of a huge amount of value. So I wouldn't spend too much time getting hundreds of them. That's just my opinion on that. So the next question we have, Mark, is, do you think schema has a future?
Definitely. 100%. Every time I go into agencies, 9 times out of 10, they've never even thought about it. But as far as the listings are concerned, you've got a lot more chance to generate more click-throughs using schema than not. Obviously, it's not a direct ranking factor, but indirectly, if your listing looks a lot bigger and better than the other 9 on the page, then the chances are you're going to get clicked. Now, that click-through, increased click-through, does have a positive increase.
Yeah.
And I mean, just yesterday, I was just messing about with different schemas, and I manually wrote a schema for this site because they had multiple offices, you know, and making sure it were verified and everything. But 100%, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree with that. You know, I can't really add too much over what you've said, Mark, but, you know, it's there and, you know, it's worth doing. It's not going to harm you. It can only really benefit you, even if it is only click-through rate. So it's something, you know, by all means. I don't believe it's a ranking signal like yourself, Mark, but, you know, it's something that, you know, it's just probably good housekeeping to do it, as far as I'm concerned. So Emily from Bright Design is asking a question. What is the #1 ranking factor in your opinion? Is it link building, time on site, traffic, content? You know, what do you think is the most important?
I always say is the on-site. Basically, is I have outranked high authority sites on a brand new domain with very, very good on page.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure crawl errors. I always describe it as you won't put petrol in a car with a broken engine.
Yeah.
And that's how I describe it. And for me, before I even entertain anything else, that's what I get. I mean, I'm very finicky with on-page stuff. I'm very, you know, it has to be so perfect. And that is what's got me good results. So basically, I don't need to do as much off-page to generate the same results because I'm so finicky with everything on page.
Yeah, I would have to probably half agree with you. You know, I'm a big believer in links are the biggest, most important ranking factor, but you can't do them without good on page. And, you know, I've got a client that I was even speaking to earlier on today, and, you know, one of the websites that we've got there has, you know, very poor on page, you know, so and building links to it's not making a huge amount of difference. So, you know, you could argue the toss there as to whether on page or link building or whatever is most important. You know, I think obviously in competitive markets, you know, they're equally as important as far as I'm concerned. But I think, you know, you're right, Mark, you can get quite good traction from on-site SEO before you even start link building.
I think it goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'd never start link building without getting the on-page perfect first.
Yeah. No, that's obviously a good point. And as I say, it's great to see that. Sometimes I have done it back to front build links just to get into, because links take time to get picked up. Sometimes I do it back to front, but it's again trial and error. Do whatever works for you. You know, if I get a website that's got low domain metrics, then I want to try and increase that. So sometimes I, you know, give a wee push in the right direction on the link building side first and foremost, and then go in and adapt the on-site. But it's not like I leave it for, you know, a couple of months and then start tweaking the on-site. I think on-site has to be done first. You know, it's you can't have a client coming to you where, you know, keywords are not even on the website or whatever. It's pointless. So yeah, so you're probably right on that one, Mark. I wanted to disagree, but couldn't. So there you go. So another question. This is Tom at Bright Design. Is there anything that we could be doing more of to help drive traffic to websites? Something that maybe other SEOs are not doing enough of? Is there anything you can think of, Mark? Any suggestions that maybe you see a weakness in the SEO industry? People are not doing enough of one particular thing?
I think you have to treat every situation individually. I've seen people doing lots of things on a site that's going to make no difference. You know, so when it comes to, is there any one thing you should be doing? Well, there's no one thing that you should be doing for everything. It's all individual. You know, that's the thing for me. It's taking a website and looking at it individually. Now, if that means that you have to advertise on a certain site, so be it.
Yeah.
I say the word advertise because we know you can't buy links. But if that advertisement is going to drive genuine people, that's going to generate business, increase rankings, then it depends how you look at it. But the one, you know, any one thing, I'd always say 95% of sites I look at, both within agencies and out, it's just the on page. They just do not think about the user.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just spam that keyword there, do that. And that's the one thing I would say, that they need to think about the user. I mean, I got one site, a product page, 2,000 words, every single page. Well, that customer at that time's in a different buying cycle.
Yeah.
That content's there to sell that product to them because they know they already want it. So this is the mindset I would say is from an SEO point of view that does benefit.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think content is something that can be quite alarming when you look at someone's website and they turn around and go to you, why am I not ranking for this? And you're looking at the 3 lines of content they've got on there, and you go, do I really need to answer this? Look at your URLs, look at your title tags. This is a joke in terms of on-site SEO. So I think you can get some good traction there, because not every, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, Mark, but I think it's probably as high as 80% of SEOs that I come across haven't a clue what they're doing. They do lack. They're either lazy or they don't know what they're doing. There are gaps in there. Just the on-page stuff's just weak. It's not had enough application, and whether that comes down to budget or time allocated to the job, I don't know. But I think hammering home on the on-site side of things is something that can obviously get you ahead of the rest, because I've said this to so many people. Either 80% of SEOs don't know what they're doing, and the 20% that do, you're probably talking a high percentage of them that are actually lazy bandits and don't actually do any work. So or they don't like doing that much work. So by applying yourself properly, I think it can go a long way. It certainly has for me. I don't see myself as some genius. It's just about trying and testing different things and having the balls to do stuff and apply yourself a little. No one wants to make out like they're working 15-hour shifts or something, but apply the bare basics. So that would be my theory on that. But so what we do? The next question we have, Mark, is, and I think you kind of touched on it earlier. This is from a guy called Mark. What's your thoughts on performing SEO on a limited budget? Is it a gig worth taking on, or I know you said you give it a wide berth, but
yeah,
what's your thoughts on that?
But mind you, if the business owner has time themselves, then there are things that can be done, obviously, but they need to think about their customers. There's no one better to build relationships up with the customers and them. Just as an example, I said to one guy, well, he doesn't have a budget, but he supplies universities, he supplies government. I said, what on earth are you doing, man? I said, give them me. Just talk to them. I mean, most of these sites have supplier pages.
Yeah.
Just ring your contact up and ask it. So that I always find there's always something that can be done with their existing contacts.
Yeah, it's one that a lot of clients don't really realise. I've got a client. I still do some client work. I've got a handful of clients left that I continue to work with, but I've got one that's a travel company, and I'm saying to them, all of these hotels that that you guys are filling up. You know, tell them you're having a link in their website. You know, you've got power there. You're filling up these guys' hotels. Use that to your advantage, and that, you know, that is a strategy that's now in place and working well for them by all accounts. So yeah, I think you can get things on fairly low budgets, but I'm probably with you, Mark. I think, you know, you get your guys that come up and say, I've got £50 or £100 a month. Can you do SEO? And, you know, it's a really competitive market, and you're going to, you're wasting your time, man. You need to, you know, you need more than that. What am I supposed to do with, you know, 50 or 100 quid? You know, it's not even worth writing a report for that type of money, as far as I'm concerned. However, there are freelancers and whatnot that will probably take that gig on and do a good job for you know, someone in a low budget. And I have in the past had people come to me on very low budgets and built them up, you know, once they've seen a return on it. So I think SEO for me, you know, it can kind of work on a low budget, but it's something you need to build up on. You know, you can attack, you know, easier keywords, you know, middle to long tail keywords with a low budget, but you know, it's personal choice. And yeah, with that whole justification thing, I tend to stay clear of the kind of low budget stuff.
Busy fools, as I call it.
Yeah. So there's another question here, a guy called Dan. He says, I've never really found a clear answer on this, but are the SEO plugins for CMS systems as useful as they're made out to be? You know, we're both WordPress users, Mark. Do you feel that I think, obviously, for me to answer that one first for a change is, there's this perception that you add a plugin and it does the SEO for you. That's not the case here with these plugins. You know, the plugins, like I prefer to use one called All-in-One SEO. You know, you've got Yoast as well, which gives you the traffic light thing. These are there to make adding title tags and all that kind of stuff easier. They don't do any SEO for you. So if there's a, you know, a misconception here that maybe a plugin is doing the SEO for you, no. You know, you've got to add the title tags, whether you're using that plugin or not. So obviously one that is quite good is obviously the Google XML sitemap generator for WordPress is one I use. And obviously every time you update your website, it creates your sitemap for you, which, you know, it's a great tool. But, you know, what's your thoughts on the plugins there, Mark, for CMSs? Are they as good as they make them out to be?
Well, it doesn't matter. Any tool, any plugin, it's not going to make the SEO any better. It just makes it easier for non-SEO people to understand where to put things. You know, obviously you've got the traffic light system, but it depends how the site's been built. You know, so even the Yoast plugin, the traffic light system, if it's, you know, an editor where you go on the front end, it's never going to pick it up. So it's just, yeah, it just makes life a little bit easier, but it don't make you an SEO expert.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But they are helpful as far as I'm concerned, but you've got to still apply yourself properly. So hopefully that answers your question, Dan. Another question from a girl, Abigail, from LinkedIn last night. She asked, she's got a lot of friends who have recently launched their businesses using Wix and Squarespace, and they've mentioned problems in optimizing their websites. What would you recommend for their situation? I know we had a discussion earlier today. You know, Wix was really bad as far as I'm concerned in the past, and you know, I'm probably quite ignorant that way in terms of not giving it another chance. But I know you say that it's, you know, there's a lot of improvements here, Mark. So is that something you feel we can do some good SEO on these days?
Mind you, you can only do what the CMS allows you to do. That's the fact. Now, obviously, 2 years ago, I built my daughter a free site on Wix. Oh my God, it never even got launched because I was that unhappy with it. Recently, I've been into a business that's using the business version of Wix, and it's massively come on. So things you didn't have access to before, you do now. obviously you still haven't got 100% control, you know, of the site. And I mean, it depends on obviously your business, but I do say Wix has come on a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I can't really answer because I've not used it too much recently. I would normally tell anyone who comes to me with Wix or Squarespace to shift, purely because it's, you know, the hosting locations alone are a problem as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, I don't want to be working under any restrictions or leave any excuses to a client. So I would always try and get them onto something like WordPress where you do have full control and you can still get that element of the client, you know, non-skilled client, to be able to edit and add things to their website. So yeah, but obviously apparently they're getting better. So yeah, hopefully that continues. I've got another couple of questions, Mark. We've only got 4 minutes left. So I've got one from Stephen Van Vessem, who's a friend of mine. He sent over a couple of questions. Now, this basically says, when do you use robots text to limit search engines access? I think Stephen's from Holland, so it's not written it properly. So why do you use robots text to limit search engine access rather than using the meta robots or the rel canonical? What factors impact your choice to use a robots text file? Or do you even use the robots text file for that, or do you use another way?
Well, if you want to stop a certain tool or certain system from crawling you, yeah, use robots text. But it's you just use naturally the rel canonicals and everything, but use them in a proper way. Yeah. You know, there's too many things that just no index this, no, you know, and it's just all wrong. But using the proper way, and it's fine. Yeah. Is if you're saying, right, no index this, if it's no value but it needs to be there, sure. If you've got a big site, you know, cost the percentage of it. If you've got like 80% that's providing no value but they need to be there and it's not driving any visitors, yeah, use that. But yeah, it's I don't realistically using the robots text to stop certain tools.
Yeah, no, it's a wise choice. I use robots text purely because it's something, you know, when I was learning how all these things work, it was just the way I was taught, and I stick to it now. You know, and I think the other way is really messy as well. So yeah, obviously you want to block certain bots or whatever from crawling your website, and yeah, it's wise to use robots text. That, you know, it's just a matter of habit for me rather than, you know, the right or the wrong way to do it. Both ways can work, but robots text for me all day long. So Stephen has one other question. How best is it to handle e-commerce link building? Is there a different way you build links to e-commerce websites? You know, I don't think there is a different way. You know, link building is link building, pointing it to the relevant page, product or category. So, you know, I attack most of these things with the same approach. What about yourself?
Yeah, there's no different way at all. The only difference with obviously e-commerce is there's more on-page stuff you need to think about. But as far as link building is concerned, you know, if use your audience, you know, that's the big thing. Is use what's already there. You know, a fashion company come to me and said, "Oh, we need to build links to these pages." Well, what have you done? Oh, we've got a celebrity to wear the dress. What? Well, that's your answer. You know, that use what you've got. But as far as link building is concerned, you shouldn't go out and build links to every product and every product variation and, you know, doing it that way.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just the same thing, different mindset, different products.
Yeah, it's the same. You know, I was surprised to see that question. Is there a different way? There obviously isn't, as far as I'm concerned. You've just got to, you know, different products and different mindset each way. So but that's us pretty much done all of that in an hour, Mark. It's went quite quick for me, given it's our first and my first time of ever actually setting up a webinar. So hopefully it has been of good value to the users, and we've answered some questions there that are hopefully helpful to other people. We would obviously appreciate any feedback, good or bad, if there's anything we can be doing better, and we may obviously do a follow-up if there is any interest in this type of webinar. So yeah, I do appreciate the opportunity, Mark, to have a discussion with you finally as well.
Yeah.
You know, face to face, so to speak. So yeah, it was good. That's us for today, and we will catch you in the future, hopefully.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Cheers.